So this section is all about firms and how firms act in a market. So firms, as I said before, are an organization, and what do? They take inputs, they use a production function, which is, as we know, a mathematical representation of how you can take inputs and transform them into outputs efficiently. So they take inputs, they turn them into outputs. You can have, it's not hard to make economic models where firms make lots of different outputs, and in the real world they do. But for this course, let's focus on just firms that are specialized in making one thing. Okay. One key is that where do they get their inputs? As I mentioned before, they buy them on the market. Where do they get their output? As I mentioned in the last video, they sell them on the market. And prices are sort of the key thing that they care about. And there are three major prices, sort of symbols that we use for different prices. Most obvious is just P, and that in this course is usually the price of the output, the thing they're selling. Okay? So if this is a company that makes food, if this is a farm, the price of food is P. That's what we'll call it. But we also have price W, which is the wage rate. That's how much it costs to hire a worker for a certain amount of time. And we're also going to very frequently use the letter R, which is the rental rate for capital. So that tells you how much it costs to rent a machine for a certain amount of time. And in this course, we're going to typically assume it's just a lot simpler if firms rent machines rather than buy them outright. But that's not a big deal, and you can show that they're kind of equivalent if you think of it the right way. Now, we're also going to make two important assumptions about firms in this section of the course. One, firms take prices as given, which means that they do not exercise control over prices. They cannot offer a higher price than the market is out there for their good. So if everybody else is selling food at $5 a bushel or something, or $5 a pound, they can't say, actually, it's $7 from me. All right? They also can't say $4. That price is sort of out there and fixed, and they can't control it. We'll justify this assumption as we go on in the future, but for now, let's just take it as given that the price is just the price. All right? Similarly, they don't get to negotiate and offer lower wages or higher wages to reward their workers. The wage rate is the wage rate is the wage rate, and they just have to take it as given and decide how much labor they want to hire given that. We can modify all these assumptions later, and in fact we will, but to start, let's just take it all as given. Similarly, the capital rental rate, they just take that as given. There's a market for it, there's a price, and that's the price. The second assumption we're going to make is, I think I've mentioned this before, diminishing marginal products. Oh, ran out of space. Diminishing marginal product. That's a little P over there. All right. And what I mean here is sort of the marginal product of labor or the marginal product of capital is falling. As a brief refresher, what does that mean? That means that the first laborer can increase your output by a lot, the second one by not as much, the third one by less than that, and so on. Similarly with capital, the early capital you buy increases your output by a lot, but later down the road you sort of have enough, and getting more doesn't get you as much of a boost of output anymore. It's not strictly necessary that this holds everywhere, but we just need it to be the case that eventually you're going to get to this point. So maybe you need to have a couple workers before you can even get the business going. So you're still at zero output until you have 4 guys maybe, and then this sort of kicks in. That's fine, as long as eventually we get there. And again, this is another assumption that will hold for this part of the course, but then we'll later see what happens when we relax it or turn away from it.